Okay, today begins like many others. You wake, check your phone, and are instantly pulled into noise. News, alerts, distractions all fighting for your attention. You scroll without knowing why, searching for peace, clarity, or just a break from feeling out of sync. In this age of speed and scattered focus, burnout creeps in not from failure, but from endlessly trying to hold it all together. We hustle, plan, and organize, thinking control will bring calm. But maybe peace doesn't come from managing time better. Maybe it comes from managing ourselves through clarity, intention, and virtue. Not more control, but deeper alignment. Not clearer schedules, but clearer souls. Virtue doesn't add more, it simplifies, strengthens, and quietly sets us free. Welcome to Stoic Dhamma, where we walk with ancient minds through modern chaos. This channel exists to unearth timeless truths from Stoic philosophy, not just as ideas, but as meditative practices for the soul. Today, we journey into the teachings of Chrysippus of Soli, a philosopher who didn't seek to dominate the world, but to harmonize with it. Our theme: Unlocking Stoic Wisdom through Virtue and Soul Harmony. Let's begin. Imagine a life not ruled by the highs and lows of fortune, but one that flows like a calm river, steady, purposeful, whole. Chrysippus of Soli once said, "Happiness is a smooth flow of life." It sounds poetic, but it wasn't poetry he was after, it was truth. A truth shaped not by comfort or wealth, but by a radical simplicity, that only virtue can guide the soul into harmony with nature. This wasn't a metaphor. To Chrysippus, it was physics of the spirit. To understand the depth of this, we must travel back to the 3rd century BCE to the city of Soli in Cilicia, where Chrysippus was born. His mind would later shape the Stoic school in Athens after the death of Zeno, and the quiet strength of Cleanthes. Unlike his predecessors, Chrysippus wasn't charismatic, he was methodical, relentless, analytical. He wrote over 700 works, few of which survive. But the echoes of his logic run through every major Stoic idea that came after him: the unity of ethics and physics, the supremacy of reason, and the definition of happiness as euroia biou, a good flow of life. This phrase euroia biou was not decorative. In Greek medicine, euroia described the healthy flow of bodily fluids. In Stoic ethics, it described the soul flowing in agreement with nature, unblocked, undisturbed, undivided. But what causes the soul to stagnate in the first place? Chrysippus would say, judgment. When our judgments stray from truth, when we chase what is not truly good, or fear what is not truly bad, we fracture. We dam the river, we become out of rhythm. This is where Stoic virtue enters, not as a moral code, but as a tuning fork. It aligns us with what is natural, just, wise. It removes the clutter of false goods and hollow fears. It purifies intention. Now imagine that in the context of your daily life. You wake up anxious. Your calendar is full, emails, deadlines, social expectations. But beneath the tension, there's a quiet truth. None of these things are good or bad in themselves. Your response is what gives them color. The Stoics weren't indifferent to pain or failure. They simply refused to give them final authority over the soul. Chrysippus believed that virtue alone, wisdom, courage, justice, and self-control, was inherently good. Everything else, indifferent. Indifferent does not mean meaningless. It means neutral until you apply your character. A job loss, a love ending, a health scare. These events don't define you. Your interpretation does. In his logic, Chrysippus created what we now call the lecta, sayables. These were not just spoken words, but the inner structure of thought. The soul, he argued, lives in dialogue with itself, with reason, with fate. And when that dialogue becomes distorted, suffering arises. That's why a good flow of life is not found in comfort, but in clarity, not in avoidance, but in alignment. And that's where Stoicism becomes not just a philosophy, but a medicine. So, how do we live that flow today? In a world of algorithms and anxieties, what does virtue even look like? What does harmony of soul mean when you're stuck in traffic, ghosted on a dating app, or struggling with self-worth? Here, Chrysippus offers a question more important than what should I do? Instead, he asks, what kind of person do I want to be regardless of what happens to me? Because when virtue becomes your compass, external circumstances lose their grip. You no longer chase peace, you become peace. You no longer beg for control, you live from inner clarity. But let's go deeper. This image of the soul flowing like a river, where does it lead? How did Chrysippus define that inner movement? He saw human nature as part of cosmic nature. To live virtuously is to live in harmony not just with society or personal values, but with the divine logos, the rational order of the universe. This is not belief, it's alignment, like gravity or breath. It simply is. Seneca would later echo this in his letters: align your life with nature. That is the path of the wise. Marcus Aurelius, too, spoke of living in accordance with the whole, recognizing that everything, life, death, gain, loss, serves a larger order. So Chrysippus, in declaring happiness as a flow of life, was giving us a direction not toward success or achievement, but toward natural motion, a movement of soul that is calm, congruent, and free. Compare that with today's pursuit of happiness. Algorithms promise pleasure, influencers promise lifestyle. But few ask the question Chrysippus asked: is your soul flowing rightly? He was not a mystic, he was a logician, but his logic was infused with reverence, a recognition that life cannot be tamed, only aligned with. This brings us back to you. When you feel restless, fragmented, lost, perhaps it's not because you're failing. Perhaps it's because you've drifted from your nature, from reason, from virtue. The good news: the river waits for you. Flow is always possible, but not through effort alone, through understanding, through letting go of false goods, through choosing what only you can choose, your character. Now we turn to Chrysippus not as a historical figure, but as a voice within. What happens if we truly believe that only virtue is good, that nothing else can disturb the peace of a harmonized soul? In the next part, we lines dive into this very question, exploring how Chrysippus' rigorous logic shaped the Stoic view that virtue is not just a moral ideal, but the only real freedom we ever have. And perhaps, in that, we'll begin to rediscover what it means to live rightly. Let's begin not with ideas, but with a man. Chrysippus of Soli was not a warrior, not a king, not a prophet. He was, by most accounts, quiet, reserved, even awkward. Yet within him burned a furnace of discipline and reason. In that fire, he forged the skeleton of Stoic philosophy as we understand it today. Born in Soli, a coastal town in Cilicia, modern-day Turkey, Chrysippus arrived in Athens during a time of great philosophical competition. The Platonic Academy pondered ideal forms. The Peripatetics refined Aristotle's ethics. The Epicureans offered pleasure as the route to peace. But the Stoics had another message entirely: peace comes not from how we feel, but from who we choose to become. After the deaths of Zeno and Cleanthes, the first leaders of Stoicism, Chrysippus took charge. He didn't just preserve Stoicism. He reconstructed it, systematically, tirelessly. Ancient sources say that without Chrysippus, Stoicism would not have survived. He wrote over 700 works on logic, ethics, physics, and psychology. Most of his writings are lost, but the surviving fragments echo one central, defiant claim: virtue is the only good. Not health, not wealth, not status, not even love from others, only virtue. It's a radical idea, especially today, when we often define success by what we possess or how others see us. But Chrysippus was not aiming to shock, he aimed to clarify. To him, virtue wasn't a polite trait or a vague aspiration. It was a precise state, perfect harmony between the rational human soul and the universe as rational structure. He taught that living well means living according to nature. But for humans, nature, in instinct, it's reason. It's the ability to reflect, to choose, to align action with wisdom. You could be sick, broke, and alone. Yet Chrysippus would still say, If you respond with clarity, courage, and justice, you are living the good life. Because virtue cannot be corrupted from the outside. That idea isn't cold, it's liberating. If only virtue is good, then your well-being doesn't depend on external events. You are free from their control. Centuries later, Epictetus would echo this powerfully: seek not for events to happen as you wish, but wish them to happen as they do, and your life will flow smoothly. This is not passive surrender. This is radical acceptance, paired with active virtue. Chrysippus arrived at these ideas through logic. His ethics were not emotional, they were mathematical. He was one of the earliest pioneers of propositional logic. He believed virtue was perfected reason and reason follows structure. So he analyzed arguments, reduced ethical conflicts to logic, and built Stoicism like a rigorous equation. If something can't harm your virtue, then it cannot truly harm you. And if only you can give away your virtue by choosing vice, then your peace lies entirely in your hands. That is the heart of Stoicism. Not that life will be painless, but that pain no longer defines you. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor, faced war, illness, betrayal. Yet he wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This is the legacy of Chrysippus, a soul rooted in reason, unmoved by the chaos of the world. Pain, pleasure, fame, death, these are indifferents. They matter only in how they shape your choice to act well or poorly. Pause for a moment and consider. What would it mean to truly live this way? What if losing your job didn't steal your worth? What if rejection didn't erase your peace? What if failure wasn't a sign of unworthiness, but of growth? You'd be free. Not free from difficulty, but free within difficulty. Free to meet life with clarity and courage. This is not the Stoicism of detachment. This is the Stoicism of soul alignment. Seneca said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Chrysippus would agree, but go further. We suffer because we misjudge, we value the wrong things, and so we build unstable lives. For Chrysippus, real virtue comes not from effort alone, but from knowledge. Knowledge of what's truly good, knowledge of what's truly bad, knowledge of what is neither. This formed the triad of Stoic ethics. 1. Good, virtue, wisdom, courage, justice, temperance. 2. Bad, vice, ignorance, cowardice, injustice, excess. 3. Indifferent, everything else, money, fame, illness, death, pleasure, but don't mistake indifferent for unimportant. Chrysippus never taught withdrawal from life. On the contrary, he urged engagement. Serve your city, love your family, speak truth but never confuse tools with goals. A Stoic may pursue wealth, but never be owned by it. A Stoic may grieve, but never forget virtue. A Stoic may fail in public, and still win in private. This was not an escape from life. It was a commitment to live rightly, regardless of outcome. Chrysippus wasn't after admiration. He wanted precision, not popularity, because clarity brings peace. And peace is the reward of the virtuous. He envisioned the soul as a flame. It dances in the wind, but never goes out. So, how do we apply this in today's world? We live in chaos, in distraction, in pressure, but virtue remains the anchor. The key is not withdrawal. The key is reframing. Don't silence your emotions. Understand them. Don't avoid failure. Redefine it. Don't chase perfection. Choose alignment. Start with radical honesty. What truly matters? If your worth depends on income, beauty, or likes, you're not free. But if your worth depends on wisdom, integrity, and justice, nothing can take it away. That's what Chrysippus wanted us to see. Not just think about, not just debate, but see. Because seeing clearly is the start of freedom, and choosing rightly is the start of peace. From here, our journey deepens. We've seen what virtue is. Now, we step into how it lives. In your work, in your relationships, in your still moments. In the next part, we move from theory to practice. We take Chrysippus' logic and apply it to the daily choices that shape your life. Where patience wears thin, where fear whispers, where your soul quietly asks, "What now?" Let's begin with a morning you probably know too well. You wake up to the sound of your alarm clock. Before your eyes fully open, your hand reaches for your phone. An email from your boss urgent, a message from someone you hope to hear from cold and distant, a headline war, climate, scandal. The day hasn't even begun, yet you already feel exhausted. But now, pause, just one breath. Inhale, exhale. This is the threshold where Stoicism truly comes alive, not in old scrolls or ancient speeches, but right here, in this moment. Between breath and choice, something begins. This is the birthplace of virtue, not in theory, but in action. Chrysippus believed that virtue is the only true good. Why? Because it is the only thing fully within your control. Every single moment, no matter how small, is an opportunity to practice virtue. Work, relationships, inner life, these aren't distractions from the path, they are the path itself. Let's start with work, where many of us spend most of our lives. Modern society often ties identity to productivity. You are what you accomplish. Success is measured by money, promotions, and speed, but that measuring stick is unstable. Many feel like they're sprinting on a treadmill, exerting energy, but never arriving. Chrysippus, living centuries before modern offices, offers a timeless perspective. He would say, the task itself is not the point. The way you perform the task, that is what matters. Are you honest when no one is watching? Are you courageous rather than fearful? Do you give your full attention to what's in front of you? The Stoic worker is not passive or indifferent. They are deeply engaged, but not attached to ego. They understand that good outcomes are preferred, but not required. What is required is acting in accordance with your highest values, regardless of recognition or results. A report may be rejected, a proposal may go unnoticed, but if you acted with wisdom, integrity, and discipline, you have succeeded. The world may not reward virtue, but virtue is not here to win rewards, it is here to ground and guide you. Now, let's move into relationships, the space where virtue is tested most. Stoicism is often misunderstood as emotional coldness. That's false. Chrysippus and the Stoics knew we are social beings. Relationships are not detours from virtue. They are its greatest training ground. You will be misunderstood. You will be betrayed. You'll disappoint others, and they'll disappoint you. But none of that takes away your freedom to choose how you respond. Will you react with anger or respond with understanding and clarity? Virtue in relationships doesn't mean you never feel hurt. It means pain doesn't control your behavior. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "When you wake, expect selfish, rude, jealous people." He wasn't cynical, he was preparing. Every encounter is a chance to practice patience, truth, love without control, presence without demands. Virtue reveals itself not in drama, but in quiet moments, listening, forgiving, staying silent when silence is wiser than words. This is where virtue becomes deeply personal. The moment you don't indulge in self-pity. The moment you return to breath as anxiety begins to swirl. The moment you write not to impress, but to understand. Stoicism isn't about becoming perfect, it's about aligning your inner compass. So, when the storm hits, you don't spin wildly. You remain upright because your roots are planted in virtue. Here are some practical tools. These are not rules, just invitations. 1. Morning reflection. Each morning, ask yourself, what kind of person do I want to be today? Not, what do I want to achieve? But, what kind of energy, presence, and character do I want to carry into the world? 2. Virtue journaling. Each night, reflect honestly, where did I live according to virtue? Where did I drift? Be truthful. Be kind. You're not here to punish yourself, you're here to understand. Chrysippus taught that it's not failure that disrupts the soul, but blindness. Journaling clears the fog. 3. Negative visualization: practice imagining loss, not to feel depressed, but to stay grounded. Imagine losing your job, your house, your health. Not to panic, but to remember, none of these define you. You are not your title, you are not your possessions, you are the character with which you respond to change. Seneca once said, "He is great who uses pottery like silver, and silver like pottery." In other words, hold everything lightly, don't cling. Everything can be taken away, but virtue remains. It's the only thing that's truly yours. 4. Micro decisions throughout your day. Small moments become powerful training grounds. Waiting in line: can you practice patience instead of frustration? When you're misunderstood, can you choose clarity over reactivity? When you feel overwhelmed, can you pause and ask, what does virtue require of me now? These micro decisions matter. Repeated often, they shape habits, and those habits, over time, shape the architecture of your character. You won't notice the change all at once, but gradually, deeply, something shifts. You begin to chase less, react less, and live more intentionally. Your focus turns inward, not selfishly, but wisely. You start living from the inside out, grounded in values, not from the outside in, swayed by noise and pressure. Of course, you'll still face stress, grief, and disappointment, but you'll relate to them differently. You'll observe them without being swept away. You'll respond not from fear, but from principle. This is what Chrysippus offered, not a promise of perfection, but a method for staying rooted amidst chaos. This way of life doesn't isolate you, it frees you. You can love more purely, speak more truthfully, act more courageously when your self-worth isn't tied to outcomes. Even when pain arrives, you won't drown. Your soul will flow not in resistance to life, but in harmony with it. That's Stoic virtue, not morality, but music when thought, word, and action move in one direction, not perfection, but direction. Imagine a river running quietly through an untouched forest. It doesn't force its way forward, it flows. When it meets rocks, it bends. When branches fall, it curves around them. It's not rigid, yet it never stops. That's how the Stoics imagined the soul at peace, not like a fortress, nor like a fragile vase, but like water, calm, clear, unbreakable. Chrysippus believed that the soul, when guided by reason and virtue, begins to reflect this same flow. It becomes resilient not because it resists pressure, but because it knows how to move with it. He wasn't interested in rigid rules or self-denial, he was after alignment. A life lived in rhythm with something greater. But what does that feel like in a real, lived moment? What happens when your actions are not just good, but true to your nature? When your inner world is no longer at war with the outer world? This is the deeper promise of Stoicism: not control, but coherence. Not perfection, but peace. Let's go deeper than discipline. Beneath the daily practices, the journaling, the reflection, what are we really training for? A mind in balance, a heart at rest, a soul in harmony with the Logos, the divine reason that animates the cosmos. Not a myth, but a structure. Not chaos, but intelligence. To Chrysippus, to live according to nature was not to imitate trees or birds, it was to understand that nature itself is ordered and purposeful. Even suffering, even loss, is not outside of that order. If we align with it, even the painful becomes meaningful, even the uncertain becomes navigable. And this is not a new idea. In Hindu tradition, there is dharma, not law, but truth, not obligation, but essence. Dharma is the path that matches your nature. When you walk it, your soul is at ease. Even if life is hard, you are whole. You are not divided. You are not lost. Chrysippus never said the word dharma, but he lived its echo. Just as dharma is the moral current that runs through the world, the Stoic Logos is a force of coherence. When you tap into that, life feels different. You begin to trust it. You begin to walk through change without panic. You begin to belong. Have you ever felt it? That strange, quiet peace in the middle of something difficult when things are uncertain, but you feel strangely sure. That is Stoic harmony. It's not a reward, it's a result. The natural result of a soul shaped by virtue, practiced in reason, grounded in truth. Marcus Aurelius spoke of being dyed with the color of your own thoughts, meaning, your essence becomes your shield. Your values stop being ideals, they become your way of being. Your character becomes visible, and with it comes a strange kind of freedom, not the freedom of indulgence, but of stability. Seneca said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." In other words, freedom is not the absence of structure, it is the presence of self-possession. When you know what truly matters, the rest begins to lose its grip. You no longer serve every urge, every fear, every expectation. You become still, and stillness is not stagnation. It's presence, it's depth, it's what allows you to act with clarity instead of panic, to respond instead of react, to choose instead of chase. When your actions flow from your center, they carry weight. They don't have to be loud to be powerful. Let's pause for a moment and return to you. Imagine your life shaped not by the need to prove something, but by the desire to be something. What would it feel like to live without needing applause? To show up with integrity even when no one sees? To succeed inwardly, even when outwardly things fall apart? That's the paradox of Stoicism. When you stop needing outcomes, you become more powerful in shaping them. Not because you force them, but because you are no longer controlled by them. You act from peace, not pressure. You lead with clarity, not ego. You become consistent regardless of circumstance. We live in a culture obsessed with measurement, followers, income, achievement. But the Stoics ask a harder question. What are you becoming? Are you growing wiser, or just busier? Are you cultivating presence, or building distraction? Is your success real, or just recognized? Modern ambition teaches us to chase goals. Stoic ambition teaches us to live values. The modern world says, be impressive. The Stoic says, be aligned. One leads to anxiety, the other leads to peace. You can't serve both. If you serve illusion, approval, power, image, you will always be unsettled. But if you serve virtue, truth, discipline, reason, you become rooted. And from that rootedness, the world can shake, but you remain whole. This is what Chrysippus offered. Not certainty of outcome, but certainty of self. Not that life will always go well, but that you will always be able to respond well. That's what it means to live in harmony. I think of ancient mosaics, fragments uncovered under centuries of ruin. Dust, fire, time, yet beneath it all, the pattern remains. The beauty holds. That is what a virtuous soul becomes. A mosaic of choices that no crisis can destroy. Harmony in motion doesn't mean hiding from life, it means entering it fully, but from a deeper place, speaking honestly, working with purpose, loving with wisdom. You don't shut the world out. You bring your full self in, and so, we arrive at a quiet invitation, not a command, just a turning point. From distraction to awareness, from striving to sincerity, from needing more to becoming more, not by adding anything but by returning to what you already carry, a capacity for wisdom, for clarity, for courage. You don't need to become someone else. You only need to uncover who you were before fear began to lead. Because in the end, the greatest accomplishment is not being admired, but being aligned. Not being envied, but being free. And freedom, as the Stoics teach, is not a gift of the world. It's the fruit of a soul in harmony. Even now, as the words settle, I invite you to return once more to the breath. In and out, not to escape the world, but to return to it differently. More still, more grounded. You've walked with Chrysippus through the storm of the modern soul. Overwork, overstimulation, fear of failure, longing for control. You've heard the whisper beneath it all that virtue, not outcome, is where peace begins. This was not just ancient theory, it was the lived truth of a man who studied not only logic and physics, but the human heart. Virtue is not a finish line, it is not applause. It is the quiet decision made again and again to align your soul with reason, courage, justice, and presence. And as you move forward, perhaps something has shifted. Not dramatically, not loudly, but inwardly, a deeper trust in yourself, a softer grip on control, a greater willingness to live in rhythm with life, not against it. Let your days now be shaped not by fear of what you might lose, but by devotion to what can never be taken: your integrity, your awareness, your freedom to choose who you are, because ultimately, as Marcus Aurelius wrote, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. What colors will you choose? Thank you for walking this journey with us. See you in the next meditation. References: 1. The Stoics Reader, Brad Inwood and Lloyd Gerson, 2008. 2. The Inner Citadel, Pierre Haddett, 1998. 3. The Cambridge Companion to the Stoics, Brad Inwood, 2003.